Hi everyone, it's David from Sherwood Ford,
Along with Drew.
and we have a guest today on Motor Monday. Joining us from the shop is Technician Lance.
Hello.
Thanks very much for joining us.
Welcome.
It's a bit of a wet day, nice to get out of the shop a little bit.
For sure it is.
Yeah. What do you do in the shop?
Automotive technician back there.
Yep. Been around a little while?
Yep.
Seen it all.
20 years, you bet.
20 years, fantastic. So for today's Motor Monday, what are we talking about?
We're going to be talking about the break-in period on a new vehicle, new engine.
We get asked all the time, what's the break-in period? Is it fact or is it fiction? Do you really need to or don't you? Now, you know, in the old days, and you probably experienced this, you used to have to take an engine and kind of baby it. You know, you'd want to vary the speed and change this and be careful with the way you drove your vehicle to break in that engine, especially on the first 100 miles. And why was that?
That's just to get everything seated in properly and getting everything functioning.
That's the old process.
Yes, for
right.
sure.
But today's process is different.
Right.
So, because of the way engines are constructed today, we're using aluminum blocks, pistons, the valve cover. All of that is different from the way they manufactured engines in the old days. And they're pretty much coming from the factory ready to go, are they not, Lance?
Yeah, for sure they are.
Mm-hmm. So they don't require that period where you have to seat in the piston rings or all that fun stuff.
No. Normal driving?
Normal driving. Oh, well, let's define normal driving, though, because there are some do's and don'ts. Because there is a break-in period, but there sort of isn't. So how does that work?
You know, the engine's come ready to go, but there are some things that you can do to help that engine out, to make things a little easier on the engine and to get you the best performance and long-lasting life out of that engine as well. So first things we want to recommend is for the first 1,600 kilometers, don't tow.
No towing. Trucks.
Don't pick up
Cars.
your truck and leave on your first road trip.
When you're towing, you're putting that engine under a load, and it's going to labor.
Yes.
Right.
So we want to operate under very normal driving conditions. You want to keep the engine, under 100 kilometers an hour, say.
Maybe vary the speed up as
Vary
well.
the speed. Some city driving, 50, 60 kilometers an hour. Some freeway driving, 100 kilometers an hour. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, just to help break that engine in.
Absolutely. So the one thing that I don't want to do is take that on a long road trip, set the cruise, and just drive, eh?
You bet. City, normal driving.
Yeah, vary it up.
City, highway, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Okay. Are there any other don'ts? Now, by the way, this information is right out of the Ford manual.
Right. So for don'ts, we don't want to put it under high load.
Yep.
We don't want to set it at a constant speed.
Right.
And what else we got for?
Well, heavy acceleration.
Yeah, heavy acceleration, right? So you don't want to put your foot to the floor.
Don't race it.
Take it nice and easy, gradual acceleration as well as gradual braking as well, just to help those parts just get nice and eased into service.
Excellent. So the other key component of the break-in period is when do I service or change out that oil?
Right.
And so, Lance, with your experience now, 20 years in the business, and you've seen a lot of vehicles come and go in and out of the shop, that first oil change, how critical is it?
It's probably the most important oil change of that vehicle's life.
Right.
Bring it in, the sooner the better to get the oil changed. I would leave it to a maximum of 5,000 kilometers myself.
All right. If you go by the book, guys, Ford is recommending a couple of different intervals based on whether it's normal driving or severe or extreme. But we're talking about the first service, that first oil change that Lance just mentioned, maybe recommending a little earlier, 5,000 kilometers, get that oil changed out. Should we go back to mineral or synthetic? Does it really matter?
I don't think it really matters. It's kind of customer preference, personal preference.
Sure. Now, the thing that really impacts the quality of the oil is how you drive, where you drive, when you drive. For instance, if I'm in Sherwood Park and I'm just making a short drive to work in Sherwood Park, it's the middle of winter. How hard is that on my oil and my engine?
It's fairly hard. You get a lot of condensation buildup in the engine oil, which is basically a killer of the engine oil itself.
Yep.
Short trips or cold weather really
pretty hard
impacts that. Yeah, for sure.
Now you mentioned condensation. We're talking about water.
Yes.
In your oil.
Water gets into your oil.
Who knew?
Not good for your
I mean,
engine.
there's a sealed system, but Think of it like a rice cooker, maybe. You know,
Yes.
you've kind of cooked off all the water, and now your rice is done, and you put it in the cold fridge. What does it do?
Freezes.
It forms that moisture back on the top.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like an engine, maybe. Is that an analogy I can use?
For sure.
Right. So water gets into that motor oil, and so it's important then, especially in the wintertime, to change it frequently. What about the guy who's got, or the gal who has a performance car, like the GT350? Maybe they only drive 1,000, 2,000 kilometers a year. How often should I change my oil on a brand new car that's not being driven?
I would keep that to 1 year. I would change it out at least 1 year, once a year.
At least once a year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Minimum.
Minimum, maybe once every 6 months.
For sure.
Guys-
Even though it's not being used, it's still just sitting around collecting.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it going to hurt my engine to change out the oil more
No.
often?
I mean, obviously, yeah, if you change your engine oil more often, it's only going to benefit that engine and make sure that things are lubricated properly.
Absolutely. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
Yeah. Best thing you can do for a new vehicle during that break-in period, be careful with how you drive it, vary it up, right? Don't abuse it. And then on that first oil change, maybe a little bit earlier than what the manufacturer is suggesting, synthetic oil versus mineral, kind of a toss-up, your preference really. And any other tips or suggestions on a break-in period?
Not that I can come up with.
We have one more for you.
Yeah, tire
Tires.
break-in.
Tire, you won't believe this.
No, so with your tires, they're obviously molded out of rubber. So when they're coming out of the mold, they use a lubricant in the mold to pop those rubber tires out a little easier.
Right.
And some of that lubricant can get left on the tire when it ends up on the vehicle.
It's in the rubber compound.
Right. So the first 500 kilometers that you drive on those tires, you know, you want to take things a little easier. You're not going to get the same braking or traction in acceleration handling that you would get on that same tire, you know, 1,000, 2,000 kilometers down the road. So it shouldn't affect things a lot, but enough that, you know, just take things easy. Just as we said with the engine, ease into it. Don't get hard on the acceleration. Don't get hard on the braking.
Yep.
Allow that whole vehicle to just break into things.
Most people aren't going to notice the difference, but for some people who are a little more aggressive with their driving style, you might feel like the wheels may be a little bit greasy.
Right.
Right? Until all the rubber compounds in that tire start to work the way they were designed and spec to do for that performance vehicle. So there you have it, the break-in engine period. Lance, we want to thank you for coming in and joining us today on Motor Monday.
Thanks for having me.
And from Drew and
Thank you,
myself,
guys.
we wish you all a happy giant day, and I'm going to come around the camera and shut us down. If you have any comments or questions, or hey, you've got your best practice, tell us in the comments. What do you think is the best way to break in that new engine and maintain the quality of that car so that it's going to give you a long and happy life? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for joining us on Motor Monday. We'll see you next week.